Have you noticed your energy slipping lately? Your ankles swelling just a little by evening? Your heart racing for no clear reason and told yourself it's just aging? What if I told you those quiet changes could be the first warning signs that your kidneys are failing, and most Americans don't find out until 50% of their kidney function is already gone? By the time fatigue turns into fluid retention and lab numbers like creatinine and GFR start creeping in the wrong direction. Dialysis is no longer a distant possibility. It's a conversation happening in a cold exam room. Every single day, your kidneys filter nearly 50 gallons of blood. They remove toxins, balance minerals, and keep your heart rhythm steady. But when they weaken, potassium can silently build to dangerous levels. Sodium can drive your blood pressure through the roof, and phosphorus can weaken your bones without you feeling a thing. And here's the most unsettling part. Some of the foods you believe are healthy may be accelerating that damage right now. I'm Dr. Richard Hale, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you which everyday vegetables may be quietly overwhelming your kidneys, and which ones can actually help protect your filtration, stabilize your numbers, and potentially delay dialysis for years. Because this isn't just about food, it's about whether you stay independent, strong, and in control of your future, and what I'm about to share could change the way you look at your dinner plate tonight. Spinach. It's labeled a superfood praised by influencers, recommended in heart-healthy meal plans, and blended into green smoothies across America every single morning. But for someone with declining kidney function, spinach can quietly become a biochemical landmine. I've seen this firsthand. A 64-year-old patient of mine was doing everything right: daily spinach salads, green juices, sautéed greens at dinner, and yet his potassium levels kept creeping upward. He felt fine until he didn't. Muscle weakness, subtle palpitations. Then one lab result showed potassium above 5.5 millimoles per liter, a level that can trigger dangerous cardiac arrhythmias. Here's the science most people never hear. Just one cooked cup of spinach can contain over 800 milligrams of potassium. When kidneys are healthy, they filter excess potassium efficiently. But once GFR drops below 60, that safety net weakens. Potassium accumulates in the bloodstream, interfering with the electrical signals that control your heartbeat. And spinach isn't just high in potassium, it's also loaded with oxalates compounds that can crystallize and contribute to kidney stone formation, further straining already compromised filtration. And here's the hidden danger: cooking shrinks spinach dramatically. A massive bowl of raw leaves collapses into a few forkfuls, concentrating minerals into what feels like a harmless side dish. That healthy plate could deliver 2 to 3 times the mineral load your kidneys can safely handle. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because spinach is only the beginning, and the next vegetable may be even more deceptive, hiding in one of the most comforting foods on your dinner table tonight. Right after spinach, there's another comfort. Food quietly driving potassium levels through the roof, and it's sitting on dinner plates across America almost every night: potatoes. Mashed, baked, roasted, air-fried. They feel harmless, even wholesome. But when kidney function begins to decline, potatoes transform from comfort food into what I call a potassium bomb. I once treated a retired school principal who proudly told me she had replaced bread with baked sweet potatoes because she'd heard they were clean carbs. Her labs told a different story: potassium climbing, GFR slowly dropping. She was shocked because no one had warned her. Here's the hard data. One medium baked potato can contain over 900 milligrams of potassium, and the skin, the part many people believe is the healthiest, holds the highest concentration. When kidneys are filtering, normally excess potassium exits quietly in urine. But once filtration weakens, potassium lingers in the bloodstream, disrupting the electrical rhythm of the heart. Levels above 5.5 millimoles per liter significantly increase the risk of arrhythmia, and above 6.0, it can become life-threatening. What makes potatoes even more deceptive is portion size. They're filling dense and often eaten in large servings, doubling or tripling mineral exposure in a single meal. Now, there are preparation techniques that can reduce potassium load: peeling, soaking, double boiling, but most households don't use them. Instead, they bake or roast, which concentrates minerals even further. And here's something even more concerning: sweet potatoes, often marketed as the healthier swap, carry nearly the same potassium burden. But knowing this alone isn't enough because there's another everyday staple, even more concentrated and far more hidden, that could be quietly stressing your kidneys with every spoonful. After potatoes, the next threat is even more deceptive because it hides inside something most families use daily: tomatoes, and especially tomato sauce. Fresh tomatoes already carry a moderate potassium load, but when you concentrate them into sauce paste or canned marinara, that mineral content becomes dramatically intensified. I had a patient who switched to a Mediterranean diet after a heart scare: more pasta with tomato sauce, more tomato soups, more salsa. He believed he was protecting his heart. 6 months later, his potassium levels were persistently elevated, and his nephrologist was concerned about accelerating decline. The irony: he never suspected the sauce. Here's the science that rarely makes headlines. 1 cup of tomato sauce can contain over 700 to 900 milligrams of potassium depending on concentration. And because sauce is reduced through cooking, minerals become denser per serving. Add in the natural acidity of tomatoes, and you introduce an additional acid load that kidneys must buffer and eliminate. When kidney filtration weakens, that buffering system becomes strained, increasing metabolic stress and potentially contributing to further nephron damage over time. What makes this more dangerous is frequency. Unlike spinach or sweet potatoes, tomato sauce isn't eaten occasionally, it's weekly, sometimes daily. Pizza, pasta, chili ketchup, the exposure compounds. Portion by portion, spoon by spoon, mineral accumulation becomes silent pressure on already vulnerable filtration systems. But knowing this alone isn't enough because there are 2 leafy greens, often marketed as supercharged detox foods, that may be even more mineral dense and shockingly overlooked by health-conscious adults. Now we move into territory that health influencers love to promote: Swiss chard and beet greens. These are often labeled detox powerhouses, packed with color, marketed as nutrient-dense upgrades to your salad bowl. But here's the uncomfortable truth: when kidney filtration starts to decline, these greens can deliver a mineral load your body simply cannot keep up with. I remember a 58-year-old fitness enthusiast who proudly drank green smoothies every morning: chard, beet tops, almond milk. He felt disciplined, in control, until his lab work showed rising potassium and early-stage kidney stress. The very habit he believed was protecting him was silently overwhelming his filtration system. Let's look at the numbers. Just 1 cooked cup of Swiss chard can contain close to 950 milligrams of potassium. Beet greens are in the same range. For someone with compromised kidney function, that's nearly half, sometimes more, of a safe daily potassium allowance in a single serving. And beyond potassium, both are extremely high in oxalates. Oxalates bind with calcium to form crystals, which can contribute to kidney stone formation and further damage delicate nephrons already under strain. What makes this worse is the health halo effect. People eat larger portions because they believe more is better, and the mineral burden multiplies quickly. Here's something else few discuss when blended into smoothies. Absorption can happen faster, delivering minerals in a concentrated wave. The kidneys don't get a gradual trickle, they get a surge. And if filtration is weakened, that surge lingers in the bloodstream longer than it should. But knowing this alone isn't enough because the next vegetable on this list doesn't look dangerous at all. It tastes sweet, comforting, and is often served during the holidays. And that familiarity is exactly what makes it risky. And now we arrive at the quietest accelerator of kidney decline: canned vegetables. They don't look dangerous. They sit neatly on pantry shelves labeled convenient, budget-friendly, even low sodium. But this is where the real biochemical damage can compound quickly. I once reviewed the food diary of a widower in his 70s who relied heavily on canned green beans, canned corn, canned soups. He wasn't overeating, he wasn't reckless, he simply chose what was easy. Yet his blood pressure remained stubbornly high and his kidney function declined faster than expected. Here's why. Many canned vegetables contain 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium per serving, and most cans contain 2 to 3 servings. That means one simple side dish can push sodium intake close to or above 1,000 milligrams in a single meal. For compromised kidneys, sodium retention leads to fluid buildup, higher blood pressure, and increased intraglomerular pressure inside delicate filtration units. Over time, that sustained pressure accelerates nephron damage. Even low-sodium versions often contain enough residual salt to matter when consumed daily. What makes canned foods particularly deceptive is frequency and stacking. A canned vegetable at lunch, canned soup at dinner. Add bread sauces, processed meats, sodium exposure multiplies. Elevated blood pressure is one of the strongest predictors of kidney decline in the United States, and excess sodium is a direct driver of that cascade. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because now that we've uncovered the 6 silent saboteurs, it's time to shift from fear to strategy, and the next vegetable may surprise you by being one of the smartest kidney protective swaps you can make. Now that we've exposed the 6 silent saboteurs, let's pivot to something empowering, because kidney protection isn't about fear, it's about smarter swaps. And one of the most underrated kidney-friendly vegetables is cauliflower. It doesn't trend on social media like kale. It doesn't carry the superfood badge. But metabolically, it may be one of the smartest decisions you can make when filtration begins to slow. I remember a patient who felt defeated after being told to cut back on potatoes and high-potassium vegetables. "So what am I supposed to eat?" he asked. We introduced mashed cauliflower instead of mashed potatoes, cauliflower rice instead of white rice, roasted cauliflower in place of starchy sides. 3 months later, his potassium stabilized, his blood pressure improved slightly, and most importantly, he didn't feel restricted. He felt in control. Here's why this works. 1 cup of cooked cauliflower contains roughly 170 to 180 milligrams of potassium, dramatically lower than spinach potatoes or squash. It's also rich in fiber and vitamin C, which support vascular health and reduce oxidative stress, a key contributor to nephron damage. Unlike dense starchy vegetables, cauliflower allows volume eating without mineral overload, meaning you can fill your plate without overwhelming your kidneys. And here's the strategy layer: swapping, not eliminating. When you replace high-potassium comfort foods with lower potassium alternatives, you reduce cumulative mineral burden without sacrificing satisfaction. That consistency matters more than perfection. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because flavor is where most people struggle, and the next vegetable might surprise you by delivering bold taste without stressing your kidneys at all. Flavor is where most kidney-friendly diets collapse, because when people cut salt and high-potassium foods, meals start to feel bland. That's where red bell peppers quietly become a strategic advantage. They're vibrant, naturally sweet, visually appealing, and metabolically far safer than many vegetables marketed as superfoods. I had a patient who struggled with compliance after being told to reduce sodium. Everything tasted flat. We swapped heavy sauces and high-potassium sides for sauteed red bell peppers in omelet salads and stir-fries. Within weeks, she reported something powerful: "I don't feel deprived anymore." And that psychological shift is critical for long-term kidney protection. Here's the science behind it. 1/2 cup of red bell peppers contains roughly 80 to 90 milligrams of potassium, dramatically lower than spinach potatoes or tomato sauce. They're also rich in vitamin C and carotenoids like beta-carotene and lycopene, compounds associated with reduced oxidative stress and improved vascular health. Oxidative stress plays a central role in kidney disease progression, damaging the small blood vessels that feed each nephron. By lowering mineral burden while supporting vascular integrity, red bell peppers provide both protection and practicality. And here's the algorithm-proof strategy: when you increase natural flavor through color and texture, you reduce reliance on salt. Lower sodium means lower blood pressure, and blood pressure control is one of the strongest predictors of slowing kidney decline in American adults. Small swaps repeated daily create measurable impact. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there's another humble vegetable, inexpensive, overlooked, sitting quietly in most grocery stores that may offer even broader anti-inflammatory support for your kidneys than you expect. Cabbage is not glamorous. It doesn't trend on health blogs. It's inexpensive, simple, and often overlooked, and that may be exactly why it's so powerful for kidney protection. I once had a patient who assumed anything cheap couldn't possibly be beneficial. He was focused on expensive powders and supplements. But when we rebuilt his meals around basic whole foods, including sautéed cabbage soups, and light slaws without heavy salt, his lab markers stabilized more than they had in years. Sometimes the most effective interventions aren't flashy. They're consistent. Here's what makes cabbage strategically valuable. 1 cup of cooked cabbage contains roughly 150 milligrams of potassium, dramatically lower than the high-risk vegetables we discussed earlier. That lower mineral burden allows volume without overload. But beyond potassium, control cabbage is rich in phytochemicals like glucosinolates and anthocyanins, particularly in red cabbage, which have been studied for anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Chronic inflammation is one of the driving forces behind progressive kidney damage. The small blood vessels that filter your blood are highly sensitive to oxidative stress, and long-term exposure accelerates scarring within the nephron. There's also a gut connection that often gets ignored. The fiber in cabbage supports healthier gut bacteria, and emerging research suggests that gut-derived toxins can contribute to kidney stress when filtration weakens. Supporting gut balance may indirectly reduce the metabolic load kidneys must handle. And here's the deeper strategy: cabbage stretches meals, increases satiety, and reduces dependence on high-sodium processed sides, lowering both mineral and pressure burden at once. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there's one final kitchen staple that may be the most powerful low-potassium anti-inflammatory tool of all, and it doesn't even feel like a vegetable. And now we come to the most underestimated kidney protective tool in your entire kitchen: garlic and onions. They don't look dramatic, they don't carry a superfood label, but metabolically, they may be the quiet heroes of kidney preservation. I once worked with a patient who believed flavor required salt. Every meal depended on it. When we gradually replaced salt-heavy seasoning with fresh garlic-sauteed onions, herbs and spices, something powerful happened. His blood pressure dropped modestly, his fluid retention improved, and most importantly, he didn't feel punished by his diet. He felt empowered. Here's the science that makes this swap so strategic. Garlic and onions are extremely low in potassium, which means they add depth without adding mineral burden. But more importantly, garlic contains sulfur compounds like allicin, studied for anti-inflammatory and vascular protective effects. In chronic kidney disease, inflammation and endothelial dysfunction accelerate nephron scarring. Supporting vascular health reduces the stress placed on filtration units. Onions add quercetin, a flavonoid associated with antioxidant activity and blood pressure support. And blood pressure control remains one of the strongest predictors of slowing kidney decline in American adults. But the real power isn't just biochemical, it's behavioral. When you build flavor without sodium, you reduce one of the most aggressive drivers of kidney progression: chronic high blood pressure. That shift compounds over months and years. And here's the deeper truth: protecting your kidneys isn't about eliminating joy from your plate. It's about making smarter swaps that preserve both taste and function. But knowing all of this still leaves one final question. How do you consistently apply these changes in real life so your kidneys stabilize instead of silently declining? If you've made it this far, I want you to hear this clearly. Kidney decline is not destiny. It is often direction, and direction can be changed. The small decisions you make at breakfast, lunch, and dinner quietly shape whether your filtration stabilizes or slowly slips away. You are not powerless here. You are not too late. Even modest shifts, swapping high-potassium foods, reducing sodium, choosing smarter vegetables, can slow progression and protect the independence you've worked your entire life to build. Start simple. Audit your pantry. Replace canned vegetables with fresh or frozen options when possible. Trade potatoes and heavy sauces for cauliflower or red bell peppers. Use garlic and onions to rebuild flavor without salt. And most importantly, monitor your labs consistently, because numbers tell a story long before symptoms do. Protecting your kidneys isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. If this video helped you see your plate differently, take 1 second right now to save it. You may want to revisit these swaps later. And subscribe to the channel, because I release practical, science-backed kidney protection strategies every week designed to help you stay strong, informed, and in control of your health. Your kidneys work for you every single day, filtering quietly, faithfully. The question is, will you work for them? The choices you make starting tonight could mean more years of stability, more energy, and more life lived on your own terms.